Alright, welcome aboard, HD friends. Fukushima-diary.com. Japanese scrap iron exported to Gunsan port of South Korea without radiation test. Now, for those of you, and you longtime viewers know I like to lead with this. For those of you that for whatever reason think that the current crisis that is going on in Japan somehow doesn't affect you, you know how many things are exported from South Korea to us? They're one of our allies. Potentially contaminated scrap iron is exported from Japan to a South Korean port without any radiation tests. The organization insists that they should immediately stop unloading the iron for the potential health damage of the port workers, steel interest, and the consumers. From the report, approximately 700,000 tons of untested scrap iron was exported to South Korea in 2013, and 64.8% was from the Gunsan port. Even in the first half of the year 2014, nearing 440,000 tons of scrap iron was exported to South Korea without a radiation test, and 73% was from this port. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm just going to go ahead and check where it was from. Scrap iron is actually often recycled into other products, like the microphone here, the computer that I'm using to hold the story references. You could be using it every day, you wouldn't know. That is another reason that this disaster affects you. Because when they talk about the potential health damage, they're talking about cancers and heart disease and a life of sickness and misery. And it's happening because of Fukushima. I'm going to go to another one here. This is a large explosion at Iran nuclear site. Kills 2 amid speculation of another Israeli sabotage from Zero Hedge. First of all, I don't buy this whole blame the Jews for everything notion. I really don't. But let's just pretend that it was in fact that. This show has said, since the very first time we've addressed the Fukushima and the nuclear issue, Iran is a terrible place to build a nuclear power plant. Why? Because their own religion, Islam, has how many factions fighting against each other? They will blow each other up just because you don't worship Allah the way they do. They of course have the Israeli threat, which is seems to be prominent here in Zero Hedges, but not necessarily my opinion. Third, they are in an earthquake zone. And it was the earthquake, not the tsunami, that led to the disaster that we're discussing now at Fukushima. It was just yesterday when, in an interview with CNN, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reminded the world that before there was ISIS, there was Israel's most loathed enemy, Iran. And he told Fareed Zakaria that in addition to combating ISIS, Netanyahu said Israel and other moderate Arab states see Iran's nuclear program as a twin challenge. Maybe it's because that faction of Islam wants nothing more than to wipe out Israel and refuses to admit that they have as much right to the land as the Arabs do. Look, I don't want to get into a political discussion because a lot of the people that come in for the Fukushima update are in fact not libertarian. The point is, there's an explosion in a nuclear power plant. No matter which side of the aisle you are on, there's been the exact kind of issue at an Iran nuclear power plant that I predicted there was going to be. This is like the third. Official state-run outlets, which often censor material, quoted the head of Tehran's fire squad as saying that 4 fire stations responded to control of the fire and that some were wounded during this. Yes, some. And the fire, of course, didn't spread any nuclear harm to anybody else because that could never happen because nuclear is always safe, right? These official reports with a link acknowledge that Parchin is a military site, but claim that actual explosion took place on a non-military installation used as a waste storage depot. So they can't even tell the truth about what happened. Of course, it's blame the Jews. The Jews did it. It doesn't matter. The point is, building this there, even if the Jews did it, is a disaster waiting to happen. Well, what about the Jews? The Jews have one. They are going to regret it when the Arabs blow it up. Mark my words, it's a disaster no matter who does it. Alright guys, this is also from Fukushima Diary, which is who we led with. 5 sorts of nuclei density marked the highest readings in Seaside at Reactor 2 again, bringing it back to Japan. And again, I lead with the non-Japan stuff because people somehow think that it only affects Japan. 5 sorts of radionuclide reached the highest readings in a boring hole located in the Seaside of Reactor 2 again. There is a possibility that TEPCO damaged a crucial underground structure during the underground frozen water wall construction, but none of the media mentions this possibility as if it was on a gag order. Remember, they have never tried to freeze the ground for this length of time nor for this much area. It is a technology that is used for things like building subways. Many people said that this was going to damage crucial underground structures, including the show, and people somehow didn't listen. Now it happened, and they're acting like it didn't because they don't want to admit that all of us were right. All the media announced this continuous increase of contamination level in groundwater can be due to the rainfall of the typhoon instead. Those 5 sorts of nuclides are all that TEPCO reports about to consist of cesium-134 and 137, Mn54, CO60, and all nuclides. Variety sorts of nuclides mark the highest density on 10/9 of 2014. It says CF various nuclides density marked the highest level in groundwater from multiple locations in the plant. And it's from the same boring hole that is already broken. It says cesium at 61 million, that's a 134. Cesium 137, 51 to 190 million. And it goes on, I'm not going to bore you to death. A CO60, 2,100,000 to 3,600,000. And yet it's like crickets. Nobody's reporting on it. Nobody cares, as if it doesn't matter. As if all of this somehow is healthy for you. Like that bonehead Ann Coulter said. The point is, cancer rates have gone up through the roof in exact relation to nuclear power plants. This is not disputed. RT, October 16th, 2014, radiation levels at Fukushima rise to record highs after the typhoon. And I mention this even though it is just a wee tad dated because it's the only typhoon they're going to have. They've had many storms, typhoons, all different weather patterns wiping them out since this started. Here's what happens that you might not hear. The amount of radioactive water near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has risen to record levels after a typhoon passed through Japan last week, state media outlet NHK reported on Wednesday. Specifically, levels of the radioactive isotope cesium, which is deadly, are now at 251,000 becquerels per liter. 1 becquerel is 1 nuclear explosion in your body per second. Each explosion can give you cancer. Any questions? That is 3 times higher than previously recorded levels. Cesium is highly soluble and can spread easily and is known to be capable of causing cancer, not thought known. Meanwhile, other measurements also show remarkably high levels of tritium, another radioactive isotope of hydrogen. Samples from October 9 indicate that there are 150,000 becquerels of tritium per liter in the groundwater near Fuku. That's according to Japan JIJI agency. It's compared to levels recorded a week prior with an increase of more than 10 times. Additionally, materials that emit beta rays such as strontium, which causes bone cancer, also shattered records with a reading of 1.2 million becquerels. We just said what a becquerel was. It's happening inside of you. The utility set of the sample GG reported. Gigi, the little girl. No, JIJI. Officials blamed these increases on the recent typhoon, which resulted in large amounts of rainfall and injured dozens of people in Okinawa and Kyushu before moving westward towards Tokyo and Fukushima. So, of course, it's spread all over Tokyo. You're not going to hear a word about that in the mainstream media because they want you to think that nuclear is safe. That is why you should pull all of your money out of GE because GE is TEPCO. Guys, this was important. This is from news.com.au. What life is really like in Japan following the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Well, it's all wine and roses because GE has come in and brought good things to life. Maybe not. Once pristine rice paddies are now overgrown into forests. Why does this matter here? Because that could be 3 Mile Island. That could be any city in America that houses a nuclear power plant, which they should not do. Wild animals are roaming the streets of eerie towns of an uncertain future. I can give you the certain future. Plutonium poisons for millions of years, so you can never go back there safely. How's that? It says that's the scene described by Australian teacher Jessica Hellamy, who recently had the chance to see inside of the 20-kilometer, which should be much bigger, exclusion zone created after the nuclear meltdown at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in 2011. Time had stopped. It says, in the main part of the town, the buildings are still collapsed from the earthquake. It's kind of nuts. It was weird. Like a time warp, everything is all overgrown, she said. All of the rice fields are covered in forest and wild animals. She said the day that the earthquake, schools were due to hold graduation ceremonies with many of the preparation celebrations still intact. They literally evacuated that day and were told that they had to get out of town completely, and since then they haven't been able to go back, she said. The kids themselves haven't been sick. Adults have gone back on a daily basis to clean their house. Anyone that's under 15 isn't able to go. And of course they're bringing these things out of their house like a bunch of damn fools and then wondering why they get cancer a few years from now because they brought a radiated item into their house. It's been nearly 40 years since the magnitude 9 earthquake struck 130 kilometers off Japan's coast at 2.46. They write it weird. 2:46 p.m. in March of 2011, triggering a tsunami that killed nearly 19,000 people. And we have no idea how many are going to be dying from the cancers itself. The point is, what nuclear brings is desecrated cities. It brings other cities like Tokyo to the point of death, but they let people stay there. Well, because it's good for the economy. They don't really tell you how bad it is. They don't tell you that if you're living there, you're shortening your life. But they should. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. We've still got 3 stories left on the massive Fukushima update, and there will be a Fukushima update tomorrow as well. There's 2 parts to it because it's really big this month. I just want to let you know, don't zone out, that you need to check out the awesome food at the Arcadia Grill. You can find it in downtown Canton. Some of the best food you've ever eaten is food that you will be eating there. It's located on Court Avenue. Make sure that you go to the bar and get a drink because you will find no place that makes your favorite drink better than they do. And they is the Arcadia Grill on Court Avenue in Canton, Ohio. Also, friends, look up the work of Mike McLaughlin, one of the best fiction writers, poetry writers, and all-around authors extant today. This story from the WashingtonTimes.com is brought to you on The Correct Views in part by Mike McLaughlin. So please look up Mike McLaughlin on Facebook. Obama will bypass Congress on Iran sanctions if a nuclear deal is reached. Once again, Iran and this nuclear power plant. Now, most of you know, especially if you checked out the Halloween edition of The Correct Views. If you didn't, whatever you do, go back and look at it. I don't care when you're listening to this. I promise you, you will laugh until you have tears coming down your eyes. As anybody who has seen that particular edition can tell you, I'm no huge fan of Obama, but anything that limits the building of the anything nuclear in Iran, I'm in favor of. As always, Obama is a terrible president in that he is not going far enough in this at all. It needs to be all sanctions or no nuclear power plant. And another example of the White House bypassing Congress to avoid a vote it would lose, the Obama administration will not seek congressional approval to suspend sanctions against Iran if a deal on the Islamic Republic's nuclear program can be reached. This is the New York Times. So, You need Congress to put sanctions in and to take sanctions away, but King Obama is just going to play Jesus and do it himself, which is illegal. But Hitler did all kinds of things illegal. Just saying. According to the report by David Sanger, citing American and Iranian officials, Iran has agreed in principle that a suspension of sanctions would be enough for them to take away from the negotiating table. But Mr. Obama, whatever, cannot permanently terminate those sanctions. Only Congress can take that step. And even if Democrats held on to the Senate, which they won't, I'm going to vote Libertarian then just mere hours. Mr. Obama's advisors have concluded they would probably lose such a vote, the Times wrote. The difference between a temporary suspension and an outright revocation can keep attorneys up at night, but there is no immediate term difference, and the Obama administration plans to use that to its advantage. So, again, we've got people haggling and trying to work with Iran about this thing. Look, it's not even open yet. And they've already had how many different disasters at this place. And yet somehow we're supposed to get into this agreement where we're just going to let them build this thing no matter how many people die. Whatever. Friends, 2 more stories to get to, including the Dumdy of the day next. TEPCO removing protective Fukushima canopy for most dangerous op yet. Protective dome being dismantled to prepare for the removal of nuclear fuel rods. This is from RT. This is where we need all of you listening to this to say your prayers because this could go very, very badly. The protective dome over the defunct Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant's reactor 1 is being dismantled to prepare for the removal of nuclear fuel rods, one of the most difficult and dangerous tasks in the entire decommissioning process. The canopy was installed by TEPCO, the plant's operator, in 2011 to mitigate the damage done to the plant in the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, which led to one of the worst nuclear disasters in human history. No, that would be the worst. We've proven that repeatedly here. On October 22nd, it started to take the construction apart using a crane-mounted drill to make 30 square centimeter holes in one of the structure's 6 panels, the Asahi Sinburn reports. After the holes were drilled, the workers coated the inside of the building with a special anti-scattering resin to ensure that radioactive material still lingering after the reactor meltdown would not be ignited. We can't stress how important that is. The inside of the building contains a significant amount of debris left after the hydrogen, that would be nuclear hydrogen explosion, following the disasters. The operation will therefore require the installation of cameras inside to survey the area. And we've already covered before how some of these areas are so radioactive that it melts the cameras down. So of course when the cameras melt down, they're called a glitch and not reported. The dangerous next step in the decommissioning process comes in 2016-17 when the workers will proceed to remove the rubble and garbage, followed by an extremely delicate process for the removal of spent fuel nuclear rods from cooling pools. And it's as a brief explanation here in this video. It says TEPCO can't complete some of its objectives at this time, as it has other more pressing matters to deal with. The erection of frozen soil walls, we've already reported on how well that's done, under and around Reactor 1 to keep the escaping radioactive water from seeping into the ocean, which has been doing since the beginning. Also, remember, it says cesium, which is very likely to be released during this, is an isotope, and it's been known, not just suspected to cause cancer, as we mentioned earlier. That is very likely to be released here if the slightest things go wrong, and it leads to terrible things. It says the scary part about the escaping radioactive material all this time later is that no one really knows the scope of the problem or how to approach it. Some of the measures, apart from constructing frozen soil walls, involve pumping off groundwater, and they have had varying levels of success. They've had almost no success. It says TEPCO has also faced a massive backlash from the government. The government is also covered for a lot of this, just to keep the economy afloat. Friends, express.co.uk bringing us to the dumdy of the day. For those of you that don't know, the Correct Views mails out a Dunce Cap of the Month award once a month, every month. That'll be probably coming on Thursday this week. And every day we have the Dumdy of the Day, where we have one here. Climate change proved to be nothing but a lie, claims top meteorologist. This Dumdy of the Day goes to the UN, who has, of course, repeatedly claimed that global warming is real. Man is warming the planet. Well, we haven't warmed as a planet in, 15, 17 years, and now this. John Coleman, who founded the Weather Channel, for those of you that think that he's a hack, he's not, shocked academics by insisting the theory of man-made climate change was no longer scientifically credible. It was never scientifically credible to begin with. Instead, what little evidence there is for rising global temperatures points to a natural, that would be non-man-made for you, the weekend fans, and its developing ecosystem. In an open letter attacking the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, he wrote, "The ocean is not rising significantly. The polar ice is increasing, not melting away. Polar bears are increasing in number." Sorry, Al Gore. Guess what? They can also swim. Heat waves have actually diminished. They have not increased. There is not an uptick in the number and strength of storms. In fact, storms are, diminishing, going down. I have studied this topic seriously for years. It has become a political and environment agenda item, and the science is not valid. God bless Mr. Coleman, who said he based many of his views on the findings of the NIPCC, a non-governmental international body of scientists aimed at offering an independent second opinion on the evidence reviewed by the IPCC. He added, "There is no significant man-made global warming at this time. There has been none in the past, and there is no reason to fear any in the future." There's never been a more correct views. UN, you get the Dumdy of the Day. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. DeGangi signing off, reminding you to check out the works at themediaspeaks.com by Kyle Court D. Lake and myself. Tune in tomorrow for part 2 of the Fukushima update, and you can donate to the show at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. Every penny that you give me goes towards a better show. Live listeners, which webcam do you like better? The one that I've been using or the one I'm using now because I have a new computer? Good night, friends. God bless.